Think you're stable, have great balance, and no way are you gonna fall? Let's test that. You can do this really easy at-home test, and I was shocked to find my results. I'll tell you more about them at the other end. If you wanna do this with me, one thing you need for sure is some tape on the floor. So I've got some painter's tape here. It comes up really easily. You also may want a tape measure or a measuring stick, yardstick, so that you can measure 3 legs, and you're probably going to want to go so at least arm's length here. So you're going to create a letter Y on the floor. To perform this test, once you have your Y on the floor, you're going to stand with one foot, really try to put the arch of your foot right on the cross. So whichever foot you decide to lead with is fine, and you're going to do them both, and you're going to do them both each 3 times. So you're going to reach first forward, touch as far out as you can, but the idea is not to put weight down. Just tap it, touch back, so you're going laterally, and then you'll go across yourself behind, and that's actually medially, and tap. And if your lines are exactly the same, you can either eyeball that, if they're about the same, and just say, okay, 3 inches to the end, or you can literally have someone else mark it or measure for you. Once you switch sides, same thing. You go forward, you go laterally. There's no rush, there's no time limit, and then you'll go medially across to the center and touch as far as you can. And then your goal is to go back, do each leg 3 times, and then look at the difference between your right and your left leg. You can do that a couple ways. So you can look at the distance from your toe to the end of the line, if indeed they're exactly the same, or you can mark and just add up the inches that you were able to reach. Either way, you want to score for comparison. Now, to interpret, what you want to be looking at is if you just created 3 lengths, they're exactly the same, you can eyeball that to how much distance between your toe touch and the end of that tape. And if it's all about the same, you don't have to split hairs, but you're going to take this and say, okay, here it is. Or you want to get really analytical, you're going to measure and add up the difference. So you're going to say on my right foot, standing on my right foot, here's how far I got in each one of those, add them together. On my left foot, do the opposite. What's the difference? How much discrepancy is there? Because that'll tell you if you have a little less mobility or stability on one side that potentially you need to play catch up. That's not a shocker. You're gonna already know that by standing up. I knew exactly what was going on. On paper, this number, not gonna tell me too much. It looks pretty good. But in the physical feel and the way that it felt, it was immediately apparent to me that I've got a little lack of stability and I've got some inflammation there. It just feels like this isn't comfortable. It isn't comfortable to bend down this much. I can get there, but I don't feel as stable and it feels sticky. So that's my very technical word for feels sticky, in that there's a resistance there. There is a reason my brain doesn't want to go there. It feels like I don't have as much range of motion, feels a little bit, it's not pain and it's not even soreness. There is no sharp or acute pain, but still there's some inflammation or swelling or something going on in that joint. That's what I want you to discover. Pay attention to that and then do the things you can to improve that. For me, when it comes to decreasing inflammation and trying to get rid of this, what I call right now is a niggle here. And my hope is it's not there for good. It's just there for a moment. It's passing through. It's gonna leave. But it's not gonna leave if I keep doing the habits that got me here in the first place. So number 1, I take a really good look at my exercise. So you wanna look at, I'm lifting. Am I lifting a little bit too heavy for right now? Can I back off of that just for a couple of weeks? Not to sacrifice lean muscle tissue or my bone density, but so that I can stay consistent, maintain, but I'm not gonna push this knee joint. So you've gotta kind of figure out right now at this moment in time, what's my priority? That would be it. I'm gonna back off of the weight.
If I've been doing a lot more high impact activity lately, I would back off of that. If I'm going for walks regularly, which I am, but I've extended the duration, maybe several times a week I'm going for a longer walk, I might back off of that. Stay consistent, but shorter. And the other thing is for me, hiking. So hiking for you, it might be biking. And if you're sitting forward on a seat, you're doing a lot of spinning or biking, you're actually putting a lot of pressure on your knees. So if you're biking, sit back in your seat so you use your glutes, you spare your knees. But for me, it's downhill. So decelerating when I'm hiking. So love that, love going up. It's good for your glutes, but when you come down, you are decelerating, which means your knees kind of have to take a little bit more pressure than when you're going up during that eccentric contraction. So I'm gonna leave some of those longer hikes out. Again, for a couple of weeks. We want to get better, but if you keep pushing on the things that bother you, you're probably not going to get better. I'm going to look at in my diet and or supplements, what can I do to remove things that cause inflammation and add things that help decrease inflammation. So in terms of foods, things that we know, and I've known for decades in working with clients who have autoimmune issues, who have osteoarthritis, not even an autoimmune, just the wear and tear kind. When we decrease or remove dairy completely, a lot of times the pain, the aches go away. So I would look at dairy for myself. I don't eat it. I have been testing it recently. I reintroduce every once in a while. I will reintroduce whey protein or Greek yogurt and or cheese. I can't do it. So it immediately bothers my gut, but it may also be contributing to this inflammation around the joint. So I'm going to take that out. Gluten and wheat or other foods for some of you. It may also be eggs. I can eat egg whites occasionally, but I can't eat egg yolks, or my body tells me stop right now. Maybe oxalates for some of you. So you want to take a look at your foods. The idea is not to just remove all foods, but it is to test them and look at, if I remove these, am I decreasing inflammation and do I feel better fast? With some of my clients, we've removed some foods. By Sunday started, by Thursday they were feeling better. So that's number one, increasing certain foods that decrease inflammation. So anti-inflammatory supplements include omega-3s. So yes, I can eat salmon and other fatty fish, but I can't eat it as frequently, like constantly, and increase it to the level I want to. So when I'm doing activities like training for something that is, say, hiking retreat in the Grand Canyon with our Flipping 50 members, or when I was training for triathlon regularly, I knew I was increasing my inflammation. So I would take 3 times the amounts of omega-3s. Work with a coach, make sure you're talking to your physician about doing that. But in clinical studies, there's been no negative side effects from increasing the amount of omega-3s you take. So up to 6 to 9 grams, and the general recommendation is 1 gram a day. So people who have knee issues tend to see the most, who have significant knee issues tend to see the most release from that. The decrease in pain and aches come down significantly when they're taking extremely high dose. But your bone, your brain, and your muscle all benefit from that. So that's one. Things like turmeric, cinnamon systemically may also help decrease inflammation. So the one I go to most often is omega-3s. Turmeric, not as easy for me to fit in a large enough dose regularly that it's really helpful. I do shake cinnamon on every day onto something. Supports blood sugar. If your blood sugar's out of whack, your inflammation is also up. Not related to my knee necessarily, but it's systemic, so it all counts. Next, then the tools that I'm using, and there are 2. One is called protonic. So I've showed you this, and that is if our hips, and they get rotated without us knowing it. So if I'm standing here square and I rotate like this, it's noticeable. You can see that this hip has come closer. But your hips can actually be rotated clockwise, they can be rotated counterclockwise, they can one be elevated, one can be depressed, and you don't know it. It goes undetected by us. Our body just keeps on going about its business. But you're going for a walk and you are compensating with every single step that you're taking. So if you've gotten rotated too much, that can be causing a problem, and or it can be failing for you to fire your hamstrings in the way that they should. Your hamstrings and your quadriceps should be in a balance in terms of a good ratio for the strength and integrity of your knee. That may or may not be true. So I'm using something called Protonics regularly. It takes about 5 minutes before I go for a walk. And what I'm doing is retraining my brain to, okay, activate that muscle, fire it, then I'll walk with it for a few minutes. It's not super comfortable, but I'll walk with it for a few minutes and then take it off and go for a walk, so that I'm reinforcing the pattern I just triggered in my brain right away, because we'll default to the pattern we had. The other thing is infrared light has become a real thing. Like, how do we heal? How do we decrease inflammation? Is it supportive of even fewer wrinkles and better collagen production in the skin, in face masks? But I have something called the Move. Put it around my knee. I've also used it for an elbow. And these things used to be, very expensive, cost prohibitive. We couldn't get our hands on it unless we went to a clinic that had a big, cumbersome machine, but now we can. You can have it for use in your home. Here's a look. So here it is, and I have this pulled very tightly so that I can get it tightened around my knee. But all of these are Velcroed together so that you can adjust them, and that means anybody in your household could use this. So if I pull this apart, basically, I think I had it so small I was using it most recently around my elbow. But if I were going to use this around my knee, the medial side of my knee is actually what's bothering me. I'm going to take this, and what you can see is these sensors actually go right on your skin. And they're laid out differently so that surface area wise, you can touch the area that you want most often. On the other side, basically is your control to turn it on. So if I turn on one, they are all connected. So if I turn on one, what I'm getting is 10 minutes each. It's already on. So normally I would put this on before I turn it on, and you don't feel a thing. So you're not going to get hot. But I wanted 2 of these sensors kind of really right on this area specifically, and then I'll just hang out. So I'll have a cup of coffee while I'm doing this. I'll just have this leg elevated on the couch. And it's so far, I will tell you, it hasn't been dramatic. So it hasn't been like, oh, I feel so much better. Like when I immediately take it off, it's repetitive use is actually what matters. So suggested that you use it about 3 times a week. I'm using it almost daily right now because I am focused. Like I want this to go away, right? I don't want to do stem cell. I don't want to do peptides. I will go that route because I'm a huge believer that, if you and I ignore something and we don't do something now, it's going to get worse. It's going to get louder. It's whispering right now, and that's what's happening to me. I've never ever had a knee issue. Now I do, temporarily, but I'm going to get rid of it. So, in 3 months, it's going to be gone, and it's going to be a thing of the past. So I'm using this on a concerted effort. You can put this on for 5, for 10, or 15 minutes. And it kind of depends. The knee, is a fairly big structure, so I'm using it for 10, and I'm using it frequently. 3 times a week, I probably would use it for 15 minutes, so you kind of get the idea. Putting it on my elbow, I used the same. I used it very consistently and did it for 10 minutes each then too. More is not better. So I had a friend say to me, can I use it more? I'm like, I'm gonna say yes, you can use it twice, but that doesn't mean you don't use it tomorrow. Use it once every day, no matter what. So for you too, that's what I would suggest for you. But there you have, do a quick test, or you wouldn't even know potentially this was happening to you, that you have a difference, maybe more dramatic to you in the feel than on paper. But then look at what can you do with your activity in order to improve this right away. What can you do with your nutrition, and are there any additional tools that you want to use? Alternatively, if you did not want to use this kind of a tool, what you might want to look is, are there other corrective exercises you could be doing to strengthen that knee, or in your case, your hip, your ankle, or something else bothering you? I hope that was helpful. Drop your questions down below.